organization needs to find an identity. And I just want to remind people they did pay for Wander Franco and it blew up in their face. So they did have a face of the franchise that they were willing to pay $180+ million, and it just got boomeranged right back in their face. And that's no fault to the organization.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Rays, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays, from game analysis to player interviews. We've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. My name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
It's your boy Evan Closky drinking tea if you're watching us on YouTube.
Love the tea, bringing you expert analysis and passionate discussions about our beloved Rays.
Whether you're a diehard fan who vividly remembers Longo's game 162 just like us,
or you remember the early Devil Ray days of Wade Boggs and Carl Crawford,
we're here to break down every play, every trade, and every milestone. In fact, this is our 6th season covering the Rays daily.
And every season they've gone to the playoffs, hopefully again, but not looking too hot. In the meantime, grab your favorite Rays gears, settle in, subscribe to our Locked On Rays YouTube channel and other podcast platforms. You can also find us on X and Instagram at Locked On Rays.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoff winds down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. So go to FanDuel.com to get started.
All right, gentlemen, on today's show and tomorrow should be a fun exercise where we put out a call for Twitter X comments and questions for the Closky Meister, and we got a bevy of them for sure. But Ulises, I think some housekeeping to do here. There was a strangling YouTube comment, I presume, that you want to introduce to Evan here and allow Evan to retort and clap back?
Of course. We mostly got all of these comments. By the way, thank you for heeding the call.
I got my pen ready because I'm going to have to take notes.
All right.
yeah, he will. The first one is a big one. It's the only one we got from YouTube. A constant commenter, and we appreciate that. Let's get started here. If you're on YouTube, this is a YouTube episode, people. All right, here we go. Number 1 from Rainman Goule, 931. I thought Evan said they were going to be buyers and sellers. All they're doing is selling, and considering they're building a new stadium with the help of taxpayers' money, who's driving the fans? What's the face of this franchise? Who's the all-star? Do they ever think this is why their fan base doesn't grow that much? You got to have some sort of loyalty, not to your players, because those days are history, but to your fans, to put a good product out on the field. They did this weekend say we give up on the season and to the immediate future. I also think the window for this potential great starting pitching staff does not match these trades. Most of the productivity you'll get from the players in these trades won't be for another 3 to 5 years. That window of Shane, Springs, Rasmussen will definitely be close by then, and the way they pay their players, if Tosh continues to be the upcoming star of the staff and stays healthy, I don't trust they will pay him and not trade him. And how could you with their history? So a lot there.
Okay. First off, never on this show do I speak in absolutes, right? Or very sparingly do I speak in absolutes. I'm sure I've done it when talking about games and whatnot, but it's
only in Name That War. Only in Name That War do we speak in absolutes.
Yeah. So could be buyers and sellers, and I would argue that they were kind of a mixture of both, considering that Christopher Morel and Hunter Biggie were immediately put on the roster, and considering that you kind of restarted the clock at, you exchanged Paredes, you got a year on Morel, like an extra year versus Paredes. Biggie, essentially, I mean, you have him, like, he's a rookie this year. He made his first appearance with the Cubs like weeks ago. So those were kind of acquisitions to help the team moving forward. And I think we've talked in the past about I know I have, about why you traded Isaac Paredes. So I would suggest go back to a previous episode if you want to hear those long tangents again, considering his batted ball profile and the unique style that he is and the tight wire act for his success. It just lends itself to a really risky bet, as great as he's been the past couple of seasons, or year and a half, I should say. As far as, a franchise face and bringing in the fans, have they ever had fans like at the Trop consistently? Even when they had the Blake Snells, the Glass, no, they're always going to be, with them in St. Pete, they're almost always going to be a bottom 5 attendance group. Maybe we'll see a spike when the new stadium comes. I hope so. But there's nothing in the proof, if we want to go on historical, in historical perspective, there's nothing that says that the more talent and the more wins that this team has done has brought in more people in the seats. They've always ranked near the bottom of the league, no matter what they've done. So that's just the fact of it. Do they need to show more loyalty to fan favorites? Absolutely. Do I think that Randy Arozarena or Isaac Paredes or Jason Adam or Zach Eflin were a part of those groups? I do not believe so. I think that this was just another case of them selling off talent before they start their true decline. We already saw Randy in the first couple of months and how he was able to rebound and regain his value. Not saying that he'll ever be that bad again, but if we look at some of the deeper under the hood numbers, I don't think you're getting what we saw in the 2020 World Series. I think we can accept that Randy Arozarena has always been a very good player outside of the 2020 World Series, where he was a historic player, Ruthian player. But since then, he's been the hall of very good. He has not been great. He's been very good, a 2020 guy whose speed has declined. So if you want to complain about not signing Glasnow or Blake Snell, those were money moves, and especially for this team that doesn't really want to purchase pitching long-term, considering the volatility of arms and how quickly they can flame out on you, once it goes or you have an injury, see you later. So it's just usually a worthwhile bet not to bet on arms long-term. But at least that argument, I understand the money concerns, because, if you had money, you just pay Glasnow, right? And insert him into the starting rotation. He's your opening day starter, unequivocally the best guy on the team. So I get some of the frustrations with the loyalty. Like the organization needs to find an identity. And I just want to remind people, they did pay for Wander Franco and it blew up in their face. So they did have a face of the franchise that they were willing to pay $180+ million. And it just got boomeranged right back in their face, and that's no fault to the organization. How can you see that coming? It just sucks. Like, it just absolutely sucks. But
it's like the worst case scenario that could have ever happened.
Correct. And the fact is, they will only do contracts on their terms. They extended, like, so, you want to be mad at some of these moves, but it's like, they traded Evan Longoria, who that one hurt probably the most of anything that's been done in franchise history. Probably was
not really
trade.
Anything worked out from that trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. The thought process correct. What you got out of it, probably a nothing.
It was a salary dump. It was a salary.
Exactly. But the fact is, salary dump probably won in that trade, considering what he did after the trade. That's just the reality of it, right? We yell and scream at the clouds for the most part. Most of the Rays' mistakes, first off, the Blake Snell one, probably they're one of their worst deals, if not the worst deal that they've ever done. Mm-hmm. But part of the mistakes that the Rays have made is giving up on players too soon. Cronenworth, Nate Lowe, right? Like, those are some guys that we can really be a little bit critical of not being patient enough. And I think since the Cronenworth-Lowe stuff, they have now doubled down on being patient, which is making fan base angry, but that's sort of where it precipitates. Good product. When you say they got to put a good product on the field, I don't want to hear it. They have like the third most wins in Major League Baseball since 2008. The product has been very good. They made it to a World Series twice since 2008. Only a small handful of teams have made it to the World Series more. Do they have to win a World Series? Absolutely. But they put themselves in position to get there. They've done it twice. They haven't won any of them. That's just part of the deal. I can name many teams in any sports history that is, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills, right? They made it to the Super Bowl, 3-4 times in a row, and they couldn't get it done. Does that mean they weren't a good team? No, they were a great team. They just,
right.
The game came and they lost. That's sports. They're not giving up. They replaced everybody that they traded. Theoretically, they're pretty much the same team that we saw that was an average squad throughout the year. Can they go on a run? Absolutely, with their pitching. Are we still a skeptic with the hitting? Absolutely, but they're pretty much the same team. I can't really argue to say that they.
There's something every Rays fan would like to get a lot of supply, and that'd be a lot of offense. Well, I can't promise you that, but I can promise you that you can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled traders at SupplyHouse.com. It is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. In fact, I have an easy-to-use website with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. It's kind of like when Kevin Cash gets information from the front office, the helpful resources to make a better lineup, right, people? Well, guess what? You can also get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. And guess what? Talk to a real person. So today, go to supplyhouse.com/TM. Enjoy the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership. You can order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com.
They tanked or they lost anything due to these trades. I would say that yes, objectively speaking, they're probably a worse team, after the deadline than before it, for sure. But in the big picture, I don't know how much they really, negotiated through this. And again, they have to clear spots for Drew Rasmussen, for Jeffrey Springs, for Shane Baz when that happened, and to get him up for Savali. So, Manuel Rodriguez when they shipped off Maton. So a lot of that was to start getting people reps with the big league club who need them as you're getting into 2025. The window depends what they do in the offseason. I understand the starting pitching next season is going to be elite. Guess what? If they are on a trajectory where they're going to win the AL East and they can make moves, well, you just stocked your farm system to trade guys next season to help you make a run to the pennant or make a World Series run if necessary in the next couple of years. I think they're going to be a very good team in 2025. They certainly need to get a couple of bats, but we'll have Junior Caminero. You're going to get Christopher Morel for a full season inside the Trop, which is going to help, you think. And then there are going to be some small tinkering moves in there. If they're fully healthy, Yandy, Bilao, Caminero, Morel, and then factor in the great defense around that, there's a lot that leads me to, and Josh Lowe rebounding. There's a lot to say that hey, this group is going to be a pretty strong contender. And finally, the prospects that they got a lot of arms, which they were really depleted in their farm system, to be honest.
Yeah.
And yes, and there's going to be they have a full mechanism working now. They kind of restocked at the lower levels. They got some players coming up at the higher levels. The Rays are always crunched on the 40-man. They didn't necessarily need too many we need them next year or the year after pieces. They have those coming up in a Caminero, a Carson Williams, a Chandler Simpson, in 2 years, Xavier Isaac. Those guys are coming. So you don't want to block them and screw yourself down the line again, which is sort of what happened this time around, is that they had a bunch of players blocked, which we can go into a whole different rant about their drafting strategy and how they continually block players. But that's a thing for another day. So that's pretty much that entire list of things in one rant.
People, I just want to say that's what you tune into Locked On Rays, because you have questions like Rainman Goule 931, and you want to be heard. You want to, get your thoughts out there. And then Evan will respond. What are we calling this? Closky's comments, Closky's mentions? Tap into Closky's
something to that effect. Yeah.
Closky's tangents.
It's a working title. Yeah, we may not do hat and t-shirt giveaways, but we'll answer your YouTube and Twitter comments. That's
right. That is right.
You mentioned identity of the Rays. Right now, I think the identity is Kevin Cash and Manta Ray riding a skateboard. That's all I've got at this point. And salary dumps, frankly.
And Eric Neander.
Yeah, and Eric Neander. That is true.
Yes.
All right, moving on to a shorter, concise question. There's a good meme there if you're watching on the YouTubes. From Jason. Can the Rays get over the hump and be a competitive team?
I'm assuming he's Jason is talking about 2024.
Yeah. Yes. Can it be a competitive team? 100%. They're going to be a competitive team because they pitch well, they field well, most games. Get over the hump. I don't know exactly what that hump is. Right? Are you saying like the playoff hump?
I think
to finally get past the 3 games over 500 mark.
I think so.
My guess is we'll see them tickle above, maybe 4, 5, 6 games over 500, and they'll come crawling right back down closer to 500. I don't see them making a run to the postseason, only because their schedule is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the way. They only play 2 teams who are unequivocally out of the playoff run. Besides that, everyone is fighting for a playoff spot. Really good teams. They're going to run into some juggernauts, especially on the road. So they play great ball. They're going to be in a lot of games. We're going to throw a remote at our screen 3 or 4 more times because they can't hit, or they strike out a million times, or they can't bring in runs from scoring position. And that's just going to be the identity of the group, probably 83, 84, 85 wins. I would say 80, 81, 80 is probably floor.
I told Kevin, obviously you both know how I am a NFL nut. I love football. Yes. And I told Kevin, I don't know if you agree with this, but if the Rays' chances to go to the playoffs were in football terms, I think the Rays are like 3rd and long, like 3rd and like 17. Is that a fair assessment? What would be your simile?
I haven't checked the playoff probabilities. I'm sure they're probably around like the mid-teens, if I had to guess, like 10, 15, 17%. So, I mean, just imagine, taking a test and getting the paper back that says, oh, here's a 17. You got 87% of the questions wrong. Yeah, I mean, third and 17 seems about right. They're just, they have to win like 6 in a row. They can't just keep winning a series. So we've done that, right? We've done that before. It just, there is no path to the playoffs without at least a 6-game winning streak at minimum, or winning 9 to 10, 8 to 10, something like that, and doing that again. But that again involves somewhere them sweeping someone, which they haven't done since May. So
correct.
We know we kind of know what we're getting with this group, and currently they are in peak 2022 form, which means that their pitching, by the way, has been at an elite level, and their hitting has been insert term level. Yeah. So that's just what we are, and at some point when that pitching falters just a wee bit, they're going to be SOL'd. And at some point their hitting is going to have like an amazing week, like just part of it. At some point they're going to catch fire for a little stretch. And that's where I'm a little bit worried that the pitching, as hot as it is now, we're going to get to a stretch where the hitting's actually scoring like 5-6 runs for like 5 games in a row. And that's going to be the week that the pitching stinks. Like that's just kind of been the season. That's
basically the ethos of it. We have for the record, Ulises, before you get to the next question, Evan was pretty much dead on the playoff odds. According to Fangraphs, Rays have a 9.8% chance to make the dance and a 0.3% chance to win the World Series. I'll just throw out the rest of the AL East here. Yankees 99.5% chance to make the playoffs. Orioles 98.5%. Red Sox 37.6%. And your Blue Jays 0.1% chance to make the playoffs. So there we go.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
I will say 0.3 to win the World Series off of a 9
I love sports, and if you're watching this, I know you love sports, and you love them so much, you never want them to stop. But we get fewer games a little bit now coming down the pipe, and sports aren't sportsing like we want them to. But FanDuel lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All we have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that we're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers. You heard me right, all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. Are you having fun this summer? Head over to FanDuel and have more fun. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Percent chance of making the playoffs isn't too bad.
Not too shabby, people. Not too shabby.
Watch out. Watch out.
Get your green Skittles out there. Okay, we have 3 more tweets, but they kind of are in the same vein. So the first one, I'm going to call an audible, another football term. Yeah, I'm a football nut. I'm going to call an audible here, and we're going to do Closky on the clock for this one, which says, when do you see Junior getting the call from Logan Henkel right now?
At this point, my assumption is Junior Caminero will get the call some point in September. Considering that the team, I think, is relegated to the fact that they're probably not going to make the postseason for the 9+% you just mentioned. At this point, it would behoove them to make sure that Junior keeps his rookie status for 2025. And to be fair, it's not like Junior's also hitting like 350 at the AAA level and really forcing the Rays front office's hand. His exit velocities prove that he's beyond the AAA level. He's going to hit a home run here and there to prove that he's got the pop necessary to be in the major league lineup, but he can probably wait a month, and they got to keep him south of like 95 at bats once he gets called up. And, you know, he played about like 7 games last year and got 34 at bats, which is pretty wild. So if I had to guess, you know, let's talk after the first week in September, you know, maybe the first week in September, something along those lines. I'm not looking at the schedule right now. Usually you like to do these moves when you're home. God, they had that long road trip.
That's not good.
That terrible long road trip, like Baltimore, Philly, Cleveland.
Oh, that's
like,
brutal.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. That so like September 17th, they come back home. That's an option, or they can do it when they come back home on August 30th against San Diego. But I'll say in between August 30th and the 17th is the window.
Fair enough. Kevin, what's the next one?
Oh, I thought you were tying multiple questions together.
Well, I was gonna let you do the next one because I was still hung up on the fact that Nathaniel Lowe was traded because we didn't believe in his glove. He became a Gold Glover, and we let him out because we believed in G-Man Choi's bat.
Okay.
Anyway,
yeah, I will say I think it has more so to do with the fact that the Rays just don't really value first baseman too much. It's just they don't make a big defensive impact, and you have to be an elite bat to prove that you're worth kind of your lick of salt there. That's why they were willing to trade Manzardo. You know, they got like an Austin Shenton, a Bob Seymour down south, and Xavier Isaac is going to be the guy that I think finally tells them like, hey, this is the first baseman we want to invest in, right? Like this guy has such like plus power. Yeah. So, I mean,
but I wouldn't scoff at a 119 OPS plus from Nate.
No, they missed that one. And they'll admit that. You ask them, they'll say, hand up, we screwed that up. Just like Cronenworth, hand up, we got that one wrong too, which is why I think you're seeing such a double down effect on patience with a lot of these guys now.
Miranda, Mead, all these other guys. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so I guess we'll move on to this next one from Sportsmanatic. Sportsmanatic says, what do you expect the offense to look like in 2025? How much of an impact do Caminero and C. Williams have in 2025? Does DeLuca take a big leap forward in his second season? Does Brandon Lau, Yandy, and Siri remain with the Rays? Thank you, Evan.
Before you answer that, we also had another one by @Dill, a bunch of numbers, saying, do you see Yandy Diaz as a part of the future, or do you think he will be traded? So that kind of ties in with the last question.
Yeah, you might have to pop up that other tweet again because there was a lot there. As far as like Bilal and Yandy, I'll just go back to that. I think we brought this up in the last episode. My assumption is one of them will go, with the probabilities being, I would say, Brandon Lau, just because of his position and how loaded this team is in the middle infield. So I would say for now, Yandy Diaz would be a part of the 2025 group, though there are reasons to believe that they could part with either one of them. They can keep both of them. It just all really depends what they want to do. And then they can also keep both and trade them midway through the season, even if they are having, like, there's a lot of things that are left on the table. But I fully believe that Junior Caminero will be their starting third baseman next season. Like, opening day, let's hunt a Rookie of the Year award. Let's make it happen, right? Mm-hmm. And then as far as Carson Williams, I would say if things go if things go perfect, we're not talking about Carson Williams coming up here until after the trade deadline next season. You know, right now he's in Double-A, had like the most incredible April, and every month has kind of taken a little bit. He's been a little bit worse, and his numbers overall, his OPS is still strong because, you know, he gets a lot of extra base hits, plus runner, plus glove. You know, I read a comp, I forget what it was, that he would be, you know, Pete Crow Armstrong, like when he came up. Just you're going to like see the tools immediately, just not immediately at the plate. There's going to be a lot of swing and miss, probably. Good eye. So there's a lot of intangibles that work with. But right now he's getting tested, but he's got to adjust. So let's see how he adjusts. I'm not factoring Carson Williams in too much in 2025. And then Johnny DeLuca, who knows if he takes a step forward. You hope so. I mean, he's going to be a part of the team. He's an elite. I looked up his RDS, his defensive run saved, and he's an elite corner outfielder defensively, especially in right field. If you played him every day, he would be one of the best right fielding defensive players in the league. He's pretty good at left field too, not as elite. Center field, he's pretty serviceable. I would say not awesome, but and then with Jose Siri, I imagine he will be back, considering his range at center field, and I don't necessarily know who's replacing him. I mean, you would have to bet on a guy like Mangum, or like, you know, just someone who probably doesn't have the ceiling of Jose Siri, who can still get 20 taters, which with his defense is like perfectly fine. And I've always said this, it's not that like Jose Siri and Taylor Walls are bad in the big picture. It's the redundancy of Siri, Walls, DeLuca, Jackson. Yes. When you put them all in a lineup, you now are like, you are asking 4 or 5 hitters to do all the work. And it gives you zero margin for error, because most nights they're just gonna get nothing done. So that's the problem. Individually, I can actually like make an argument for each one of them. It's when you put Jackson with the bat, it's a little not so much. But I'm just saying, when when you put them together as a group, it becomes a problem. Individually, I fight for them. As a group, it's a problem. So.
Yes, right. I think we had that conversation with Brett Phillips. Like, okay, like this team would be great to have a Brett Phillips if Brett Phillips were only a defensive guy, not a guy that you're actually
only a pitcher.
And Walls was always supposed to be, and again, Walls was always supposed to be a late inning defensive shortstop to back up Wander, right? He was never supposed to be like this everyday starter.
God, but he failed AAA. Remember, they were coming up like, oh, he's a dark horse, 130 WRC plus.
Well, and if you remember, I mean, he got his shot before Wander did, so they gave him a little bit. And you know, ultimately, though, it just, we know who he is. He's got like 1,000 at bats to his name. He's below the Mendoza line.
We know who he is. Evan, that was awesome. People, I hope you enjoy that. There's another episode with a lot more questions too. So, Evan, before we wrap this up, where can the people find your awesome work?
At Closky WTSP. That's on the screen right there. ECLOSKY WTSP. Send me your questions, raise thoughts. Love responding. to 99.9% of you. 0.1 is reserved for the jerks. Head to 10tampabay.com, 10tampabay Plus. We have plenty of stuff cooking still with the Rays, and of course training camp going on. The Buccaneers play their first preseason game this weekend, so we'll be all in on that.
Very good. All right, we'll have more with Evan on Wednesday's episode. Stay tuned.